Opening up the UFC 311 fight card, we have Tagir Ulanbekov taking on young prospect Clayton Carpenter. And if you also have PTSD from young prospects getting smoked, well, I kind of do too. And that might explain why this line continues to widen. You'll see it open at minus 300 and now Tagir's minus 310. What you don't see there is there was a dip in the middle. There was a point in time where Tagir was like minus 170. And then it widened after this weekend. I don't know if it's because that's when people just came to look at the fights and look at the odds and then started to bet, or if literally the Austin Bashi fight where people are like, I'm done betting. I am done betting these young UFC guys. By the way, we got Tagir Ulanbekov. He is a dominant come-forward wrestler. He's got decent striking, nothing spectacular. Good jab, and right behind it is a takedown attempt. All 4 of his UFC wins were very grapple-heavy. He has 12 takedowns and 2 submissions. The only real complaint about Tagir is while his offensive wrestling is solid, defensively, he's not as solid. Tim Elliott exposed it a little bit with that forward pressure and just that nonstop pace. He is coming off a canceled fight. He was supposed to fight Josh Van. He limped off the scale after missing weight. He was holding his side, and that fight was just canceled. It was a really bizarre situation. He's taking on young prospect Clayton Carpenter. He's a very slick grappler on his side as well. He'll take wild chances. He will hunt for submissions. He's a fast-paced guy. He rushes forward, immediately sets the tone. He's always hunting for a finish, and even though he's only 8-0 as a professional, he's got a ton of competition experience. He's been traveling the world since he was a little kid, competing in different martial arts, and he's coming off that submission win over Lucas Rocha, where the wrestling and the control were great, but it was clear that his striking was a little bit of work. Rocha. It's a great matchup. This is a good test for both guys. Not that Tagir needs a test at this point in his career, but I told you, I questioned the takedown defense after what Tim Elliott did to him. And we're going to get Clayton Carpenter testing that takedown defense. We're also going to get Clayton Carpenter finding out how good he is or is not. This will be his first established UFC guy that he will be fighting. It is not an easy fight for him. Clayton can definitely have success if he wrestles first. My fear here, and the reason I'm going to pick Tagir, is because I think Clayton Carpenter is too excited, too wild. We saw a little bit of that with Austin Bashi, just too excited to get the takedown, too excited to change positions. Instead of getting the control, keeping it there, working to the next position, it's just all gas. And a guy like Tagir with that experience can sort of weather that storm. Either way, Tagir is going to be the pick. I think these odds are too wide, and I didn't place a bet, but my mouse was hovering over Clayton Carpenter plus 3.5. I'm like, I feel like he can win a round. And then I just got, I have PTSD from Austin Bashi, so I kind of chickened out on that. But what do you think, Jakey boy?
Yeah, I've been a known Tagir Ulanbekov hater to the point where Cody Durden was my lock of the week versus Tagir. So if I'm picking a lock of the week, like I told you, I've said before, not only is it I'm picking for a fighter, but I'm also picking against the fighter. And Tagir was a guy that I was picking against. I thought that Cody could land some power on him. He did land a nice right hand, but also, you know, as you mentioned, Tagir has shown that he can, against a high-pressure wrestler, be taken down, controlled a little bit, but at least thrown off his own offensive game. And I really felt that Cody Durden was going to be able to implement that game plan. And what I found out is Tagir's Ulanbekov's wrestling defense, while you can get to his hips, to a leg or whatever, you can take him down. Off his back and his scrambling abilities and the way that he can sweep and reverse positions is so high level, especially with the length that he has in this division. You get him on the back and it's not a jiu-jitsu, I'm going to throw up a triangle. He will do that type of stuff, but he's using it to advance the position. And a lot of it is just feet on the hips, the butterflies, all that stuff, elevate you, flip you over. He's just so good at those positions. I think Clayton, with that wrestling style, is just not going to be able to keep up with the pace that Tagir can set in those scrambles. Because even in that Tim Elliott fight, I think Tagir ended the third round with like 4 minutes of control or something like that. So while it was a little bit messy early, he didn't really fade in that fight and actually started picking up as it goes. So, Clayton, for his wrestling, he probably will get a couple takedowns, but as we saw as well, when you shoot on this guy, you better cover your fucking neck or he will snatch that up as well. Clayton's a pretty good boxer, but Tagir's not a guy that really stands and boxes with you. He keeps range pretty well. So on the feet, I think he's going to struggle a little bit. As you mentioned, if he can get the wrestling going, control, there's a path to victory, but against Tagir, he's just too good in scrambling. So I'm on Tagir, and I feel pretty good about it.
You think Clayton could win a round? You think that plus 3.5 is a decent bet? I was like literally hovering over it.
I think Clayton is aggressive enough and not experienced enough that he's going to eventually get caught in a submission when he is wrestling. Because even saw Cody Durden got caught in like a mounted guillotine. And if his front choke defense, especially his guillotine defense, is so high level, and he took his time and he rolled out of it. But I mean, Tagir snatches shit up like fucking that. And if your defense is not on point, you're fucked. And I think he's a tough guy. He's going to keep shooting takedowns. So
I just hate the experience difference. That's ultimately why I chickened out on that. So we'll see what happens. We got a lot of card left to bet on. We have $8,900 in DraftKings fantasy on the Tagir side. That's a lot of money, but if you think he gets the takedowns, he sets the pace, he's got the control time, potentially gets a finish, and that money is well worth it. I'm actually going to stay away from that as well because I do think Clayton could potentially have some success. Just don't know how much yet. If you want to unlock all the picks, the bets, the tools, the refreshed data analyzer, and every single freaking thing that we do, right now, it's only $10.
So fresh and so clean.
For an entire month. That month includes multiple events, not just this one. It's freaking $10. Download that app too. Cheap. Bastard.
By the way, people are talking about C-Rod. He was outstruck and out-controlled that first round, so...
That was an interesting, let me go back here so I know how to timestamp this. That was an interesting dynamic in that fight because Jacob and I obviously were watching there live. We don't get to hear any of the commentary. We just see what we see. And that first round felt insanely close. Second round was very clear for Clayton, and the third round was clear for C-Rod. So it felt like that fight was going to come down to the first. Oh, yeah, dude, sorry. Austin. And it felt like it was going to come down to the first round. I thought Austin probably or could have won that first round. Based off of the comments under my recap video, I am the only person on this planet that thought that. Like, everybody was 1,000% sure.
He literally, by the numbers, had more
stats,
strikes and more control, and he was the one that was moving forward. I know C-Rod had like a couple submission attempts in there and stuff, and that's must have been what they counted it. But, yeah, visually, I was like, that's why when C-Rod flipped me off, I was like, dude, you're... Because it was the third round. He was winning the third round, but I was like, you lost the first two rounds. Like, I was like, why is he flipping me off? So I literally was standing up filming, like, oh, this is going to be great when C-Rod actually loses. And then they were like, for C-Rod, and I went...
You can see in the vlog, both of us are like, what? So obviously, the difference has to be being there live in person and watching on the broadcast. There has to be some sort of gap there because... We weren't the only two. In the arena, lots of people felt like, whoa. What do you mean unanimous?
I was extremely biased, but...
I mean, I didn't have the same bias as you, but I don't know. It just seems surprising. That could be the difference between broadcast and real life.